Hello YouTube, I got a FreeNAS video for you guys. Now just to give you a fair warning, this FreeNAS video is actually going to be more in-depth than some of the other ones out there. I'm setting up with mine with a little bit more redundancy, a little bit more money than what typically you might want to start off. Considering FreeNAS, the OS itself is actually free. NAS stands for Network Attached Storage, which you can actually have your own file system stored on your home network, or if you want something a little bit higher end, enterprise network as well. FreeNAS themselves, they offer quite a lot of different options. Their website, freenas.org, they give you quite a good array of what you can do. Their community is very good. Of course, what FreeNAS can do is you can do file sharing, you can have a whole bunch of plugins, you can create a media server like a Plex media server, you can host a Minecraft server, you can have a transmission server, DLNA, and stuff like this. And there's also backup as well. There's going to be redundancy depending on the type of RAID you're going to be doing. FreeNAS highly features the RAID system. The file structure is mostly ZFS. One of their common RAID structure is going to be RAID Z 1 or 2, or I think goes up to 4. RAID Z works kind of similar towards RAID 5. So going through their website, just navigating, it offers a web interface to manage everything. It works with Linux, Apple, of course Windows, NFS and stuff like that, CIF, SMB. You can do snapshots of it, you can do replication, so you can at least always have a backup. You can, if you don't have any hardware or anything like that lying around, you can actually purchase them. You can buy their small little tower, or you can buy some of their enterprise equipment, which is going to be like kind of like a rack-mounted 2U, 3U kind of style. Just navigating through the website, you can definitely check it out. But I'm going to actually show you how to set it up. So first, let's just go to download. So let's go to download. You can sign up for their newsletter. You can find out a whole bunch of stuff right now. So the current patch is actually going to be 9.10. And actually version 10 is actually coming around the corner. They have released a couple of videos online. They've redone the interface. It's very nice, very clean. And it still looks like it offers a lot of the great points what I do like about FreeNAS. Let's just hit no, send me to the download page, let's click download, and here we go. I actually currently already have it downloaded, as you can see here, like with the little one, so I'm just going to cancel that actually. And let's create a USB, no, let's create a CD. So like I said before, this is going to be a pretty in-depth video on it, so I'm going to show you the reason why I like to do burn as a disk is because I find it better off actually burning with a disk. I've done USB boots and stuff like that, but it doesn't tend, sometimes I get some errors and stuff like that. Just burning to a CD and working with a CD actually seems the most redundant. It might be some tedious for some people considering you don't have a CD drive or something. I didn't, but luckily I had a USB CD drive, so it worked out for me. So just make sure when you burn it, you can do the built-in Windows, it's built in Windows 7 Plus. Just hit verify burning, hit burn, and then let it do its thing. Of course, pop in a disk. So once that's burnt, I'm going to actually show you what my previous hardware is. So my previous hardware was actually an old HP 6200 compact or something like that. It featured 4 SATA ports. I had 4 Western Digital 2TB RAID drives. I had 8 gigs, Core 2 Dual. It got the job done for me. It was reliable, it was working. I got my USB boot here that I'm using an internal USB header. And this is what I was using. Now, the thing is kind of pretty jerry-rigged. You can see how hard drives, the cables, are pretty, when you put the panel on, the cables kind of get really close, and I didn't like that. This hard drive right here is not even sitting flush. It's sitting on an angle with a 5 1/4 to a 3.5 adapter. And I didn't really like that. On the bottom here, it was kind of really close, and sometimes it would touch, and I just wanted to avoid that just from grounding. So it was pretty nasty, and then I changed over to this new system, this new rig that I did. I bought a Silverstone PS10 case. It was under $100, had lots of fan options. I was able to fit 5 drives. I actually got another drive over here. This is actually going to be a 120 gig SSD. I only put my jails on here because with applications like Plex and stuff like that, it tends to work a lot better off of a SSD or a separate drive if you want. SSDs are pretty cheap, and I wanted something to be a little bit faster when I'm building my media tables and stuff like that. It works great. I have a VirtualBox set up as well that I use time to time just to do some little bit of testing. So that's all set up through my FreeNAS. And then right here I actually bought an additional Western Digital 2 TB, so I got 5 of them in total. and I configured it on a RAID 2 array, RAID Z2, sorry, RAID Z2 array. So this means two disk redundancy. So if two disks fails, I just swap them out, and then my data is still safe. I'm using an old board that I got here. It's an AMD A175M motherboard, and I'm using the AMD F1A75M-Pro. I can't remember what the chip is, but I didn't have a cooler as well, so I bought a cooler. A little bit of overkill, but it definitely gets the job done. These coolers are great for the price they are for. I grabbed an additional power supply. The one that was in the case prior was like only at 200 something watts. I wanted something with a little bit. I wasn't going to like kind of strain so much, so that's what I did. So here's my drives, just a little bit closer up. I got two 120mm fans here, cooling the drives, always constantly running. Here's a little bit of a close-up to my cooler, a little bit of fingerprint smudges, but whatever. I made sure that I had good airflow and good open space, so nothing would be clogged up, no wires will be blocking it. And when I was talking about redundancy a little earlier, I was referring to my USBs. I had one USB, so I decided to get two USBs for my new build, because my old one, actually my boot disk, my old USB, my little blue one back there, was actually failing. So then I got two of these, and I actually decided to do a mirror boot, so that if one fails, I can just swap it out and don't worry about anything. Now, one thing to consider as well, for me, I bought these Kingstons. They're I personally am just a Kingston lover. These ones are pretty fat drives, so with my little USB header right here, my internal USB header, internal to external, it was a little too fat to put them side by side, so I needed to find something else. Oh, that's a little sideways. Oh, there we go. So I got one of these ones that actually, I took it off from a front panel, disassembled the front panel and took these apart, put a little bit of heat shrink and some double-sided tape, and now I got two of these USB headers, and now it has a nice clean look, I think, just having it off there on the side. There we go, that's a nice little close-up. So that's pretty much what my system is going to be. So the next part, what I needed, I grabbed a USB to SATA adapter. What I used this for was that I can actually mount it to my main computer and clean the partition table. Since my previous RAID configuration, I could have imported, but I bought an extra 2 terabytes, so I just needed to, I got to rebuild my RAID configuration anyways. And I'm not exactly sure if FreeNAS will automatically detect the RAID configuration if I can delete it. Sometimes you run into some errors. I know with some other RAID setups that onboard or even software RAID might have some issues. So I powered on the system, made sure the SATA power was plugged in, started unplugging the SATA cables and plugging into my computer one by one. I currently actually have this USB I have in here. This actually used to be my old one. Notice how it says here disk 3. What we want to do is that to clear the partition table, when you plug it in, sometimes you might not be able to actually hit the format or delete volume. In this case, I actually can't hit delete volume. So what we can do is that we can open up command prompt. So in Windows 10, Windows 8.1, you can right-click and hit right-click on the start and hit command prompt as admin. If you don't worry about it. Start typing command prompt cmd, and then you can right-click and run as administrator. So now, since we have it running as administrator, we want to launch an application called disk part. That's one word. And then now we've launched the program. What we're going to do is type in list space disk, and it's going to show us all the drives that we have connected. Drive 0, 1, 2, 3. I like to just double check in here with the names because it doesn't show the names in here. So disk 3, it shows under 8 gigs. This is an 8 gig USB, so that's exactly what we want. So we want to select it. So we want to type select disk 3. Oops. Now we have selected it, and then we want to type in clean. Now just confirm everything first, otherwise you'll just wipe your partition table. Considering that I got these other drives here that that are important to me. Notice how this now, the partition table is now empty. Black means it's not allocated, it's unallocated. And what we can do now, we can just leave it from there, kind of thing. Unplug it, move it to the next one, copy from, and then just rotate the list from list disk. Select disk, and then go to clean, and then basically just keep doing this for all 4 of my drives that I had in my previous RAID. To Exit, you can just type in exit twice, or you can just click the X. We're done with this step. Now we're going to be moving on to the actual install process. Okay, so now that we have our disk burnt and we're ready to proceed, I have my USB drive plugged into my computer, powering on my system, and I am going to, on my motherboard, I'm going to be hitting F8. Just check the bottom of it, just to see what your boot menu option is. It's just going to be like a manual boot. And then I'm going to select the DVD drive here. I'm going to apologize just for the video quality. I didn't have anything to kind of like a capture, especially something like this during the boot. I didn't have a capture card or anything like that. So I've selected my USB. I'm going to be booting off that. It's going to be asking which installer to do. And then it's going to do its thing. A bunch of code is going to be popping up. I realize now after, when I started this, that it's going to be a little bit off-centered for some of the initial part. I apologize for that. I should move the camera a little bit more back. So it's going to do its thing here. So now we have got into this menu. We're just going to go ahead and hit install. Now I'm going to actually go down and select my two USB Kingston data travelers. Now these are USB 3.0 drives, but I'm actually plugging them into a 2.0 port, just because I didn't actually. I've been reading on the forums that some people might run into some errors using a 3.0 drive. Giving you a warning, letting you know that everything on the media would be wiped. It's going to be using the whole drive. Hit yes. And this is where you're going to be doing your root password. The login is going to be root, and this password you're going to be creating one. So I'm just going to create one here. And now it's going to be doing its thing and actually starting the install. This will take quite a while. A lot of the stuff will be automatic. It's going to reboot once or twice. Okay, so now that everything has been installed, what we can do is actually go through the menus, hit option 4, and let's shut down. Okay, so now when we have the system rebooting, I sped this part up quite a bit. It does actually take some time during the first boot. It's going to restart once. It's going to start the process of actually booting into the OS. It will automatically select into its own boot device when you just let it time out. This is just doing its thing super quickly. And then once it actually finished booting, you actually get a little text menu letting you know that what's the IP address of the server. In my case, mine's going to be 192.168.1.1. Now you can actually change this through this GUI menu here, or you can actually log into the backend and actually change this. I can show you guys how to do that in the next part, kind of thing. It really depends on what you want to do. Doing it through the GUI does make everything nice and simple. As you can see here, this is the menu that I was talking about, and that's the screen where you see the IP at the bottom. Okay, so now that we got the IP, I know I said it was 192.168.1.11, I believe. It's actually 111, so 1.111. So I've typed this in. So if I type in 192.168.1.111, I get the FreeNAS login. Now, the username is going to be root. The password is going to be the password we have set up in during the install process. Nope. I don't want to save because I'm going to be changing this password. Now, I actually have been working with this for a little while. I actually reverted back some of the changes so I can show you guys how to do this. First off, what we want to do is when we want to go to a network, we can create a host name. This is if you want to do easy file management. So we go into File Explorer. You know what, actually might be easier like this. And then type in NAS. In this case it might be confusing just because I just changed it and it's probably trying to look for it with the old IP. But later on when things get better you can actually have like a friendly name. Domain I just left it at .local, so this just means it's a local network. Your default gateway, this is actually what my default gateway currently is, and if you want to know what your default gateway is, you can type in IP in command prompt ipconfig, and you need to type in /all, and if you go up you're going to find your DNS and your default gateway. So you can just copy those settings in. So you want to do your IPv4 default gateway, you want to do your name server to 1.1, And then what I like to do is also Google for backup for name servers. This is actually when you need to do something outside. My primary is going to be my local IP address over here. Interfaces, this is where we're going to go. Notice how here is 1.1/111/24. Just double click on this, leave the name, just change this IP address. I'm going to change mine to 5, and leave all this other stuff defaulted. It's going to let you know your network connectivity is going to be interrupted. That's because right here we're connected to the 111. We actually now need to log into the 192.168.1.5. This is the one I have changed it to. So notice how I'm actually back in it again. And if we go back to networking, that's still the same, and I am on a /5. So sweet, it's been working. A lot of this other stuff you don't really need to deal with. Here's a quick little network summary. The reason why I changed this to Google's DNS is that when you go to the plugins tab, sometimes it actually doesn't download properly when you're using your default DNS settings. Instead of actually changing it to only the Google DNS settings, you're going to have issues because if the FreeNAS is trying to look for a file or try to look for a computer, it's going to talk to Google first and then try to talk back, but Google doesn't know what your home environment is. So make sure you kind of set that as a secondary or something like that. Now, what I've actually used on my old FreeNAS, again, this is a replacement from my old FreeNAS server to, and then I'm replacing it this. I have a Plex media server, and then I have transmission, and then I actually am setting up under templates. So it'll be in here, jails, templates, and then there's a virtual box. I actually got all 3 of these installed already, but I can show you the process of how I did this and how I have the 2 separate volumes. Now, first off, if I go to my storage, you notice here I got a lot of folders, kind of thing, a lot of data sets. Don't worry about it; it's a little bit confusing. I understand. So what I did first is that I went through the basic configuration. You can go through here, make sure everything looks to par. General, you want to make sure that everything, you want to change your time zone, leave these to default ports. Your boots, these will clean up after a while. It says here it will automatically 35 days, it will take care of them. This stuff you can leave. Email address, you can actually set up an email address to send everything out towards. So if you get alerts and stuff like that, just make sure you actually set up under the root an email address. So when you go to users, view all users, and then you go to root, I'm going to double click on this scan account just so I don't show my email address, and then under root you're going to double click and then just type in the email address. So this way when you go to system, you go to email, you type in, I set up a Gmail account just to send me alerts, and I filled out all the information as needed. This stuff you can leave, but when you do jails, yeah, first time this will be empty. So you go to storage. When you go into storage, you'll go to, so you can see here on my disks kind of thing. I'll run this through very quickly. The reason is because there's a lot of people already on YouTube who do very, very detailed tutorials on how to create data sets and stuff like that. Now I'm going to go over the setup on what I did for the reasoning that I have 2 storages, one for storage and one for my jails. Now the configuration and stuff like that is not too bad. Just make sure that you do this beforehand instead of you starting to install plugins. The reason is because you might have to rebuild some data sets and stuff like that, and do a couple of reboots just to make sure everything is working properly, so just kind of save you the headache. So as you can see here, I have everything configured. When you first start off, there's going to be nothing here. So you go to Volume Manager. In my case, or very similar in your case, you'll select your volume drives. In my case, was going to be 2 terabyte Western Digital 2 terabyte drives. Hit next. I clicked on all 5. I named the volume pool to volume 1. I didn't extend it, but then I changed this to RAID Z2, and then I hit add volume. In this case, I hit cancel, or make my JL set again, but I select the 280 gig SSD, name it jails, so just so it's easier for me to know. Leave it on the default, which is Stripe, and then hit OK and add. Now, once that is done, you want to create a couple of data sets. These data sets and stuff like that, going through the tutorial, depending if you go like IX Systems, FreeNAS, they have actually pretty good videos. There's a whole bunch of other people who do videos as well. You can kind of skip that beginning part because this was kind of made already. So, let's just start off with the jails one. So for the jails, I created a new data set, and then I called it, I created a new data set. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Create a new data set. I left it as basic and I called it jails. I left it on default permissions. The default permissions are going to be on root, then full, and then 7.7. So, no, sorry, 5.5. And then I just saved it as is. I left it. Next, what we need to do is tell jails where to install everything now. So under jails configuration, we want to redirect it to that jails one that we've created, so they know, hey, don't install in default, which is going to be your volume pool. Install it on something else because this is where I want it. So I installed it on jails. I hit save. It did its thing, and then I tested it out by going to my plugins. Grabbing a plugin, in this case I wanted to use Plex, hit install, and then it started installing. And then when you check installed, it'll tell you, in this case it's running for me, but then you notice how in your storage it showed Plex and then transmission, and then my case would be virtual machine for my 3 that I'm using at the moment. Okay, so now that I pretty much went over the more complicated part of this video, there are some other things that I have done. Notice how here I have a scan folder. This is actually for my printer, so I can just scan to a network folder. I created a generic account called scan. The password is something simple. I think it was just scan. And I gave it permission to only that one folder. All the other folders I can't access, so if somebody was able to get the password through my printer, they wouldn't be able to get into my FreeNAS. There's a whole bunch of things you can have on here. You can set up tasks, you can do smart tests and stuff like that. You could do network. You can double check your network configurations. You can have this set up to an AD. These are going to be my sharing services. So I have Apple sharing and I also got SIF sharing. Services here, I enabled SSH just so that it was a little bit easier for me if I was doing some commands. So by default it might actually not be enabled, so you just need to make sure it's enabled, and then make sure that you can sign in with root. I think this might be checked off at the beginning. I remember I was running into some issues. Now I actually created a script that will show me my temperatures. I know it says temp. I made it. Now it seems like it's a temporarily instead of a temperature one. But regardless, it gets me a job done. I've been getting this weird bug which is saying my CPU temperature is 5.8 Celsius. Now, I know I have an aftermarket cooler, but I don't think it's running that efficient. When I've been checking other commands and other tools and stuff like that, it might just be a compatibility problem with my motherboard and FreeNAS. That's why I'm getting this like really low FPS. At one point I did see it at an optimal temperature of like 24 degrees Celsius. And then also shows me my hard drive temperatures, because with going through the FreeNAS GUI, I can see everything from CPU usage, disk loads, memory loads, network loads, partition loads, everything except really temperature. The easiest way I found was actually just getting this script created. Noticed how these two don't have a temperature. These are actually my USB boot drives, so of course they're not going to have a temperature with it. And what I say is, set up email alerts. They do help with troubleshooting and stuff like that, just in case if the system did die, so you exactly know what was happening with a little report. And then when you click on alerts, it will tell you what the alert is here. You can uncheck it to ignore it if you know what it is, but try to keep it green. It bugs me every time it's red, so that's what I do to always make it better, kind of thing. So, this pretty much concludes the end of the video. I want to thank you guys for actually sticking to the end. Now, I know this video was running long, but the reason for this video being long is that I wanted to do a more of an in-depth look. This video might not be for everyone. If somebody's setting up a FreeNAS for the first time kind of thing, they can just bust out an old computer, that's no problem. I've been using FreeNAS for a while. I've been very happy with FreeNAS, and I wanted to make sure that's something like what happened to me with my boot volume failing. I wanted to make it as redundant as possible. So what's more redundant than one USB boot? Two. And I kind of standardized. I made everything a lot neater. I made it easier to access and for me to service. With the old computer, if I wanted to service it or replace a drive, I would need to take off the side panel, take off the front panel, get some screwdrivers, and then take off the adapter mounts and then slide the hard drive out. So it's very inconvenient with getting a decent case with a lot of good airflow and stuff like that. It makes it nice, and I'm running a quad core with 16 gigs of RAM, so I can actually throw on a VM on there with a VirtualBox. I can throw on a virtual machine, and I can have something set up. I can have a Windows directory. I can set up a Windows server or something like that. I can set up a fax server, a Linux server or something like that. Especially with virtual machines, they become super handy. If you're ever familiar with like enterprise environments, notice how they have 20 servers on one super expensive machine. The machine's loaded like crazy, but it's running multiple different VMs on it just for different applications. So I hope you guys again enjoyed the video. Leave a comment or leave a comment, suggestion, a question. I'll answer them as best I can, as soon as I can. And I hope you guys have a great day. Take care, guys.